49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, after his 2023 season, has been the star of the franchise and become the most talked about player on the team. Purdy finished the season with 4,200 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions with a QB rating of 113. He helped take the team to the Super Bowl again against the Kansas City Chiefs, which ended in a loss. Since that Super Bowl game and season, analysts and fans have talked about Purdy as being one of the top QBs in the league going into next season and believe he can repeat or have a better season than the last. But we are here to say that this is all bullshit. Brock Purdy, even though he had the stats, there were countless times his star-studded team protected him from being exposed. We are even seeing it in the offseason where he threw 3 picks in practice and followed it up with 4 the next. Kyle Juszczyk was asked about Brock Purdy and he said he isn't here to make excuses for the quarterback. We also saw Purdy make comments about setting an expectation for himself to be as dominant as Tom Brady.
Stay off the weed. And you can't stay off the weed.
Yes, Tom Brady in all 4 quarters. We have also seen that there's a little bit of tension between Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel, in which Purdy says he got onto him. So now, what are the expectations for Brock Purdy, and will he be a top-tier quarterback?
With the Brock Purdy conversation, I've been saying this for a few weeks now. I think that Brock Purdy is the most interesting story in the NFL going into this season. And this is a big year for Brock Purdy. As we know, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get contracts. We know that Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow and Jordan Love are now tied for, the league most average in terms of per year salary with $55 million. We know that there are disputes in contracts dealing with Dak Prescott. We're assuming that he's going to be breaking that bank, resetting the market in terms of what he's going to be making for his salary. So this is a big year for Brock Purdy. He's had a very, very Cinderella-like story coming from nothing, essentially. Mystery relevant, last pick of the draft. You get drafted by this great-ass team with great-ass talent, all pros, pro bowlers, all over the board. And my biggest thing with this Brock Purdy conversation is the fact that now the media is feeding into the hype and he is feeding into his own hype, which is what my biggest problem is. As Jalen said, he made some very, very disturbing comments comparing himself to Tom Brady.
You can't stay off the weed.
He explained his mentality is to be dominant and channel the type of energy that Tom Brady used to have in games. Quote for Brock Purdy: "With as good of a team that we have, I want to get to that point where we get to the third quarter. There's a couple of drives that are crucial. I'm on top of my stuff. We convert on third downs and we score touchdowns and the lead just gets out of hand." It's having that Tom Brady kind of feeling. Late in the game, it always feels like Tom was going to take over and not make it close. I feel like I can get to that. I have big problems with that comment because of the Tom Brady comparison. I know some people are going to say, well, he's not directly comparing. Yes, he is. He is comparing himself to Tom Brady. By you saying you feel like you can get to that, Brock Purdy, what are you saying? Are you saying that you are on a GOAT trajectory? I just think that if all of this comes into play, that he will be hindering his team instead of benefiting his team. As Cam Newton said, there are 2 types of quarterbacks. You have game managers and game changers. Brock Purdy is a game manager. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, but because of the auxiliary pieces around him, he is able to look great. You can take 20 to 25 quarterbacks and put them in that San Francisco 49ers system. They will at least make it to the NFC Championship game, if not make it to the Super Bowl. And a lot of those guys will probably win the Super Bowl, because nobody can tell me with a straight face that if you take a Jordan Love, somebody with that requisite talent, and put them on this 49ers team, that they don't win the Super Bowl. They have all of the talent. Like Brock Purdy, he was top 3 in the MVP conversation, but you have Christian McCaffrey on your team who is top 4. You have George Kittle, who's one of the best tight ends in the game. You have Brandon Ayuk, who's one of the better receivers, Deebo Samuel. You also have the best fullback in the league on your team, and this is just the offense. And you have one of the greatest offensive minds in Kyle Shanahan coaching your team.
Don't forget that left tackle.
And you have the best left tackle in the NFL on your team. And so this offense, Jimmy G took this team to the Super Bowl. So Kyle Shanahan, he has been able to make this offense dummy proof. You could basically take a book, How to Get to the Super Bowl for Dummies, and Kyle Shanahan, he basically has the game plan to do that. It would just be examples for what he has been able to do with this offense. So I think that some of these comments that Brock Purdy has made is showing that he is buying into his own hype, which has been overblown. We know that Brandon Ayuk most likely is going to be out of there. Christian McCaffrey is dealing with the calf injury. He has a injury track history. And what's going under the weeds and what has been very, very underrated in terms of the storyline is the fact that Trent Williams has been holding out. He has not practiced. And we all know that when Trent Williams was on the Washington football team, Washington Commanders, he held out for 8 weeks. He will hold out. And if Brock Purdy does not have that security blanket to provide him the requisite protection, then it could be a very, very long season for the San Francisco 49ers. And one last thing before I send it off to CJ is Jalen did bring up Brock Purdy with these interceptions. And a lot of people have been trying to make it seem like it's not a big deal that these interceptions happen. They're nothing. Somebody asked Brock Purdy, when you throw an interception in training camp and watch on film afterwards, what's your process of assessing yourself? Purdy says, it depends on what kind of pick it is. If I'm trying to fit it in a window and be aggressive, or I just couldn't see a guy, those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And that's what I do myself. Obviously, I get pretty mad at myself in terms of, dude, you turn the ball over and you can't do that. It's finding a way to grow mentally in terms of you can't do that. Or, hey, I was being aggressive here and seeing if I can do it with this guy in this kind of window or against that kind of look. I'm not just out there trying to throw the ball up and act like it's camp and I don't care because I do. Brock Purdy, you don't have the requisite talent to make those throws. So you need to get all this shit out of your system, because when the season starts, if you start that bullshit in the first 2 games of the season, Kyle Shanahan and you are going to have a conversation, and it won't be a pretty one. And to answer that second question, Jalen, he is not a top tier quarterback.
No, Brock Purdy, he still has a lot of growing to do, in my opinion. I wasn't really moved by his season last year. I do feel like he kind of stepped into that role with just playing the game manager. He pretty well last season. I think that, you know, a lot of times his ego kind of gets in his way. You know, to be a last pick, you know, of course he's gonna have an ego. You know, I would too, you know. Nigga chose me with the last pick, bro. That's crazy. I noticed a lot of times, you know, with his decision making, it kind of puts into question who he thinks he really is. I ain't gonna lie, some of the balls he throws, you think he was Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, zipping that hole like he's Brett Favre or, you know, Josh Allen. And he's not. So he needs to, above all else, understand his limitations. And once he understands his limitations, he'll become a better quarterback and more nuanced. For him to be getting all these comparisons last year about Tom Brady and Joe Montana, I thought was asinine. He really didn't even do anything. Like, you know, honestly, to have comparisons to those quarterbacks, you had to at least bring home 2 or 3 championships. He didn't even have a Super Bowl win. So for him to get lobbied up in those conversations, I thought were pretty insane, to say the least. You know, you had talk shows talking about Brock Purdy for MVP, and I never saw that, to be honest. He's not even the best player on his team. You can probably come up with 10 guys on that roster that's better than him. I can 6 on offense, and going on defense, Fred Warner, Travis Ward, man, probably Greenlaw. Oh, Bosa, yeah, Bosa. So, you know, for him, you know, to be top 10 on his team, if at all, I think it's crazy for him, you know, to be having this mindset, you know, that he's greater than what he actually is. He's not. Brock Purdy, you know, he really has to lose the ego and mindset. He's not as good as he thinks he is. And a lot of it, you know, I think that, you know, with his body type and him being not a great passer, it puts a lot of limitations, because guys like Drew Brees, you know, being 6 feet, they're insanely accurate. Brock Purdy is not insanely accurate. Brock Purdy doesn't have a strong arm. Brock Purdy doesn't have crazy wheels. That moment in the Super Bowl when Chris Jones came home on that one play when Brandon Ayuk was wide open, and that would have been a touchdown. He got pressured and he made I wouldn't even necessarily call it a bad decision. I didn't think it was a bad decision at all, just throwing that away. But great tier quarterbacks, they try to at least make a play. And if they don't try to at least make a play, they will make a play. I could have foreseen Lamar Jackson getting out that spot right there. I could have foreseen Josh Allen getting out that spot right there. Tight situations like that, if you're that guy, you make a play.
Okay? You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And he didn't make the play. Part of my problem with him is that I thought he played pretty good in the Super Bowl. I didn't think he played bad. Yeah, some people saying he played terrible, which I didn't see. I thought he played a really good, solid football. But he didn't play a great brand of football. He didn't wield his team on his shoulders as other top tier quarterbacks have done for their teams, i.e. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, those quarterbacks. So is he in that tier? No. Is he in the second tier of probably like Herbert's, Lawrence, probably Dax. I don't even think he's in that tier. You know, Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's in that tier at all. Now, is he in the third tier? I think he's probably in the third tier. I think he's probably in that third tier with the Tuas, with Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. I think he's in that tier, but to be like he's a top tier quarterback, I think that's really, really insane. People to rise to that question, or people to put him on the trajectory of these all-time greats. I think first of all, they need to get the brain check. Second of all, I think they need to be searched for if they have any drugs at their house or in their cars. Please be located as soon as possible, because they're smoking some crazy coke.
I'm going to start off by saying the biggest bailout that Brock Purdy had was, of course, the NFC Championship game where the ball bounced off of the safety and Brandon Ayuk went in there and caught that ball. Because had that not happened, we probably wouldn't have seen him in the Super Bowl. I would be fine with Brock Purdy if he wasn't talking so much. All these folks, all these guys, these analysts and stuff, they can talk all they want, have these crazy outlandish takes about him. But if you're feeding into it and agreeing to it, you're just as guilty as them saying it. If you were just, all these guys are talking, but you're just here to play football and continue to prove that you're not just Mr. Irrelevant, I'd be cool with it. But no, you're setting all these crazy expectations for yourself when in reality you still haven't won anything. You're having pretty good stats and stuff only because you're surrounded by a bunch of great guys and a great head coach. For you to set all these crazy expectations for yourself, wanting to be in a conversation like Tom Brady is crazy. Until you have done something, then I would settle down with these crazy takes about yourself. Coming into next season, you're gonna have to be prepared. You're gonna see a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. You're gonna see a Jordan Love who's coming off of a great second half of last season. He'll be having a full season. You're seeing the Lions, after getting a taste of how far they could have went, they're finna come back now. Patrick Mahomes, he felt very disrespected on that top 100. So Joe Burrow, he's coming back. We got Jalen Hurts coming back after this season, after a rough season. It's just a whole bunch of quarterbacks and teams that are going up from here. For you to have all these expectations for yourself, sir, I hope you're ready, because you finna be thrown into that fire. It seems like there's a little bit of tension between, you and Debo. So we don't know how that's gonna go.
Going back to that Debo Samuel comment, it's just kind of crazy how he wanted to point out the fact that there was tension and that he was the one that yelled at Debo Samuel, when it's like, dude, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, those are the guys that have been defending you when everybody is talking about how you're not a great quarterback, you're overrated, you're mystery relevant. Those were the guys that were defending you. So the fact that he's not cognitive and he doesn't have the awareness to acknowledge that fact and be humble about that was very, very shocking. The fact that, like Jalen said, he is buying into his own hype. He does believe that he is great. You know who Brock Purdy is? Brock Purdy is that singer, that pop singer in the 90s that has all of these guys writing songs for him, where the engineer is putting all of this auto-tune on his voice, that's pitching all of his vocals. He's lip syncing. He's not a good dancer. And he thinks after he's, went platinum, that he can do it on his own. And he doesn't need those guys. That's who Brock Purdy is, because all of these Brock Purdy defenders that are saying that he's a game changer, he's an elite quarterback, he's top tier, he should have been MVP last year. Can y'all name me one thing from a quarterback standpoint that he does at an elite level? Like CJ said, he doesn't have the wheels. He's not really accurate. He doesn't have a strong arm. He has small hands. He's undersized and he's not fast. So what does he do at an elite level? People need to answer that question before we can put him in that top tier quarterback. Because every single top tier quarterback, Mahomes, I don't need to ramble on what he does great. He pretty much does everything great. Lamar, his speed, he's dynamic. Josh Allen, he's a freak of nature who has a great arm. Joe Burrow, he's probably the most accurate quarterback. These quarterbacks have things that they do at an elite level. Brock Purdy doesn't have that. You know what he has? He has a great fucking team behind him. When Brock Purdy gets that 60 mil plus contract or whatever he gets, if he plays well, he needs to give 10 to 15% of that check to all of his offense.
Okay.
Because they're the reason why he's getting paid $60+ million. This man is literally going to go from getting paid $900,000 to $60 million a year. And he is thinking that it's because he's great. Okay.